and I want to make sure you've seen my screen. Have you seen my screen?
Yes, please.
You have. Okay, right. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It's a real honor and a privilege for me to share with you a couple of thoughts on the subject of illegal mining, the Environmental Degradation Act's sustainability and restoration pathways. Personally, I've been associated with this subject matter for as long as I can recall, dating back to 1982 as a staff of the Environmental Protection Council, then that now is moved from council to agency now to authority. And also, I did my doctorate program in environmental technology, specializing on the environmental impact of mining, both small and large scale. So this subject matter is of very interest and important to me personally. We have to get a little bit of a background as to why this is a big national issue. Professor Frimpong had indicated the history of mining in this country, gold mining in this country. But I recall in the early 80s, an ounce of gold was around $200 an ounce. Then in the mid-90s, it came to around $400 an ounce. And now it is $4,242 an ounce. Interestingly, it is being speculated, let me say that by next year, gold will reach $500 to $5,200 an ounce. And the most optimistic scenario, that's the most optimistic scenario, is looking at something between $6,500 to $7,000 an ounce. Now, I'm not a mineral economist or mining economist. So these are information that I have gathered from some credible sources. But if that is the case, and mindful of the fact that a third of Ghana's gold winnings, in fact, a third to 40%, that is 33 to 40% of all our mining winnings, gold mining winnings, coming from small scale mining. So small scale mining contributes significantly to the national economy. And therefore, there is a lot of incentives for people to cash in on this very precious resource, even to the detriment of our environmental resources. So it is important that we do everything possible to address this problem. And Dr. Segumuzi shared about his experience in Namibia and Tanzania. Now, so my presentation was cut through this subject because Professor Frimpong and Dr. Segumuzi had covered quite some of the issues I wanted to go in, because the way the subject is and the dimensions we are looking at it, there's sure going to be some overlaps. So I was stressed on some pathways in addressing this problem, some specific suggestions to addressing that issue. Now, but for a broad perspective, my presentation will look at the context of Galamsey, as I've said, then the environmental degradation, the sustainability dimensions, looking at the environmental, social, and economic dimensions. Then we'll look at the restoration pathways and some future outlooks. Now, what is Galamsey? Galamsey is informal, unregulated, illegal, small-scale gold mining. It is not small-scale gold mining, which is illegal. but there are aspects of it which are unregulated, informal, and things, and they're not following the mining regulations. That is galamsey, illegal small-scale mining. Now, it also has a dimension of destroying our biophysical environment, our air, our soil, and our water. And this is because the mining takes place essentially in the forests and in the riverine zones within this forest belt. The most interesting, and again, sad thing is that interesting because small-scale mining goes on in 14 out of the 16 regions of Ghana. Although gold has been found in all the regions, in some areas, the degree of mineralization is so low, but at least 14 out of the 16 regions of Ghana have some form of illegal gold mining activities going on. That indicates that Ghana is blessed with these precious resources. And if we manage it well, it will help the country move out of poverty into a strong and an emerging developing country. If we don't manage it well, it will result in the destruction of our environmental resources and to the detriment of our health and social well-being in this country. So we have a blessing and a curse, and we have to decide which one we want to choose. Now, when you look at the destruction of our forest resources and our river bodies, it is sad. In fact, some of the rivers are so turbid that you can be deceived by thinking that a cup of turbid riverine water is a cup of chocolate or cocoa or Milo. They look similar in terms of the color of a cocoa drink and a highly polluted river in Ghana. Now, there are areas I've also delineated in this slide. Let me go. I've delineated in this slide some hotspots just to show you that from the Upper East region, the Northeast region, through the Savannah region to the Bono region, to Northwest, to Central region, going to Western region, Ashanti region, Eastern region. These are, in fact, some hotspots of illegal mining activity going on. And I have also zoomed into some areas in the Amanfi Central, Amanfi East, the Wassa West, the Prisia-Huni Valley, the Takwa Inshim region, the Mpoho, the East Nzema East. These are all hotspots, real hotspots of galamsey activities, and it's going on even as we speak. Now, so why does it matter? Why do we have to be concerned about the environmental degradation arising from illegal mining? It pollutes our water bodies, particularly the Pra, the Ofin, and the Ankobra rivers are heavily polluted. I don't want to go in there because Dr. Segumusa already talked about mercury pollution, high turbidity. It also talked about arsenic and other contaminants. We also have a destruction of our forests, ecosystem, and our cocoa farms. And then our water bodies, national security, and also livelihoods are threatened. Now, when we talk of the impact of land degradation, here we mean that pits which are dug and craters which are created as a result of extracting auriferous or gold-bearing sediments or material are left open and uncovered or unreclaimed. And that poses a lot of risks to the villagers or the people who live in that area, in that community. The erosion of topsoils is also a very big issue. About 2 years ago, I made a presentation addressing the issue of destruction of our topsoils and indicated that from a soil morphology perspective, or what you call pedogenesis, the formation of soils, it takes about 15,000 years for rocks to break down to form soils on which can support agriculture and some vegetation. So if we destroy our farmlands, it takes several, I would say dozens of generations for us to get any resemblance of a restored, degraded land. And also in our communities, in local communities where mining is done, stagnant pools are created, which constitute grounds for breeding mosquitoes and also, causing health impacts to people within that community. Now, this kind of destruction goes on for several reasons. One is economic reasons for the people in the local area or people who are doing the laborers engaged in that mining. Poverty is an issue, unemployment is an issue, and as I said, high gold returns, now $4,200 an ounce, and also the low agricultural income. Maybe about 2 years ago, Professor Frimpong and I and some religious leaders went to the eastern region, Akwetia area, and in our interaction with the local people there, they made it very clear that cocoa farms are being sold and oil palm plantation farms are being sold to galamsey operators for the extraction of gold. And when I asked why, he says, we get more money selling our lands than the benefit we get from the agricultural produce. So long as agricultural income are low and extracting gold illegally has high economic returns, and we have unemployment and poverty, if these issues are not addressed, the income of our farmers, and today is a Farmers' Day, so that issue is very important. The unemployment issue within the villages and small towns, and the issue of poverty in general. If these things are not addressed, then the economic drivers to destroying the environment in pursuit of gold becomes very, very high. The issue of governance is also an important driver. Weak enforcement, corruption, and political patronage. People who are in power and people who have political influence also use their influence to get involved in illegal mining. Then we have the social aspects where the youth are seeking for quick wealth. They want money quick. That is also becoming an issue. And the communities are tolerant of this mindset. And therefore, parents push their kids, even school-going kids, to do galamsey over weekends and sometimes even on school days. Then
sorry,
we
Dr. Manful, you have
Yes.
15 minutes
Sure.
to finish your presentation. I see you are 9 out of 28, so
I
if
will
you could
run over
kindly,
some
yeah.
of those
Thank you,
issues.
sir.
Thank you,
Okay,
Madam, for the
thank you.
reminder. So we also have the technological issue that we have excavators now being important to our country to do dredging, and also foreign-backed mechanization support from foreigners. So all these issues are important drivers of the problem of environmental degradation arising from small-scale mining. So I've talked already about the turbidity and siltation of rivers. With Dr. Segumu talked about mercury and cyanide pollution. We've talked about bioaccumulation of heavy metals in fishes and other benthic organisms, and the destruction of the riparian zones within the catchment area of major rivers. So our forest reserves are being encroached upon. Habitats which are often joined and form as corridors for the migration of what is it? What I call animals. Okay, for lack of it, let me use animals. Their habitats have been fragmented, and the issue of ecosystem services loss, the benefits we get from ecosystem, is also being degraded. Now, when we come to air quality, we have dust and smoke emissions, greenhouse gases from deforestation arising from small-scale mining, and then local climate variability or vulnerability. So the environmental sustainability issues have three key drivers. One is the damage caused beyond recovery. The ecosystem has got an internal tolerance. And when the impact exceeds the carrying capacity of that environment, then we move into a tipping point, and at that point, there is recovery becomes difficult. And at the same time, it reduces the resilience of various ecosystems, be it aquatic ecosystems or forest ecosystems. These are also having challenges, and water security risks also exist as a result of illegal mining operations. As I said, the economic sustainability issue, we have to weigh between the short-term gains and the long-term damage as a result of small-scale mining. Then we also have to look at the high cost of treatment of potable water. And Ghana Water Company has been complaining for some time now that the cost of water treatment is high, and therefore our water bills have gone up and will continue to go up. And the loss of fish and fertile lands also constitute an economic sustainability constraint. So the social constraint, I think Dr. Segumus had talked about it. The first two issues of health, occupational hazards, and then the other aspect, which I'm just touching on briefly, is the crime and the community disruptions as a result of small-scale mining. Therefore, we have to look at our governance and institutional sustainability issues undermining our effort to address galamsey. One is the weak enforcement we have in this country. Then we have problems of institutional overlaps, where one institution thinks that the other one is trespassing on their areas of operation. Sometimes it's not very clear. For example, when people are mining in forest reserves, and you want to know whether there's an issue for Forestry Commission to address or Environmental Protection Authority to address or the local community or the district or municipal chief executives have the responsibility. The local government has responsibility of addressing this. So sometimes there is this kind of institutional overlaps and sometimes theft protection, and also the issue of corruption and interference. As I earlier said, when somebody is arrested, there are some very influential people who can interfere in the law enforcement process and therefore cause these kind of challenges. So now, what are the cultural and ethical sustainability issues? These include a better understanding of our stewardship obligation as a nation. And Prof also mentioned about the land as being our ancestral heritage. And then I think our chair also talked about the issues of intergenerational justice, that the resources we have today is meant for us to maintain and build resilience into it so that our children and our grandchildren would also benefit from the use of these resources. So what are the issues arising out of the effort to ecologically restore degraded lands? We have to avoid degradation of the environment. Where avoidance is not feasible, we have to minimize that impact. And if we minimize those impacts, the residual impacts which takes place, we have to restore or offset it. I can explain that when we go into the breakout groups. Then we have to also enhance the recovery of ecosystem functions so that the rivers, the vegetation, the soils can maintain their normal ecological functions. Then we have to get the communities involved in this exercise. So the land restoration options that we have include backfilling of dugout pits and recontouring to minimize erosion, adding some soil fertility enhancement to improve soil fertility and improve the ability of soil to hold water, revegetation areas which are badly degraded, and also doing contouring to minimize erosion. Now, when it comes to the river and riverine body systems, we have to do siltation because the river is already heavily silted, and that brings cost. We have to employ riparian restoration systems. We have to look at mercury-free processing, which I think the government already started that initiative. And Environmental Protection Authority, the water company limited should all enhance water quality monitoring to the extent possible. The issue of alternative livelihoods to dissuade young people from getting involved in irresponsible mining. We have to also inculcate the practice of responsible small-scale mining. The community must also be involved in the restoration and a stronger enforcement pathways. When we come to, okay, let me skip this because I'll come back to this again. So in the next 5 or 6 minutes, I'll run through some slides. One, we have 5 strategic pillars we have to settle on. I would say that we have to embrace 5 strategic pillars. One is strong governance and enforcement pillar, which we have to digitize and decentralize licensing for small-scale artisanal mining. They don't have to come all the way to regional centers or even to Accra in order to do those, to regularize their licensing processes. We have to establish a national mining enforcement coordination center by next year. If we want to address this issue, we have to set up a mining enforcement coordination center. We have to equip the multi-agency enforcement teams with intelligent tools and accountability systems, then we have to establish a fast-track mining and environmental courts to address this issue. When it comes to formalization and responsible mining, we have to have a mechanism where we can transition to at least 70% of active miners would have to be licensed over the next 2 years. We have to have mandatory reclamation bonds for all licensed miners. So some money should be set aside to reclaim the land after it has been mined out. Then we have to expand the mercury-free technologies and get this technology disseminated nationwide. Pillar 3, we have to restore at least 3,000 hectares of degraded land annually starting from next year. If we are not able to do that, we have challenge with the degradation of our lands. We have to decide to plant at least 5 million trees across Galamsey corridors in this country, and we all know where the corridors are. And we have to restore river banks using engineering nature-based solutions. Livelihood transition. We have to train the youth in green livelihood skills over the next 3 years. And we have to set a target. At least 50,000 youth will have to be trained in green livelihood skills. Then we have to expand, in that regard, we have to expand the facilities that support agroforestry, aquaculture, cashew, and shea nut value chains in mining areas so that we can diversify the economic base of the mine of the people in these areas. Why all stakeholders must be involved? Government alone cannot fight Galamsey. We need the chiefs to protect customary lands. We need pastors, imams, or religious leaders to revive moral conscience of Ghanaians. We need the youth to defend their rivers in the future, because for the older generation, we have few years ahead of us with respect to the years that have gone behind us. CSOs must also support this process by educating and monitoring the impacts of illegal mining. The media must be quick to expose wrongdoing, irrespective of whoever is responsible for these actions. Development partners should also help sustain technical and financial support to address the problem of Galamsey. The miners themselves should embrace legality. This is a society-wide emergency and is also a whole of society mobilization that is needed to defeat this. In conclusion, Galamsey is a national crisis, restoration is possible, and there is a need for collective responsibility to address the problem. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
So thank you so much, Dr. Manful. What an insightful presentation. I think Dr. Manful deserves also another hand of applause. So please, let's give him the hand of applause. So much, I mean, so much information has been given to us. I mean, I just felt like I was in an academic lecture. Thank you so much. Yeah, so Dr. Marful, some questions have already started dropping. So I will just, because you have saved like 2 minutes, so we'll use that 2 minutes to see if we can address some of the questions before we go into the breakout room session. But if we are not able to get to the breakout room session, we'll have like another alternative way of going about the continuation of the program. Okay, so I see. So I want to quickly check the questions and then ask. Okay. Okay, so I have one from Dauda. Why is it that none of the committee responsible for stopping illegal mining aren't using their drones technology that the professor talked about? So Professor Frimpong, so if you are with us, please can you address that question? And then so whilst he's preparing, I'll read another one, and then we see which other speaker this question is addressed to. So my question is, what can illegal mining stop in Africa, especially Ghana? How and what effects will it benefit the youth you are into it after
Hello,
stopping
can
it?
I get the question again?
Okay, is that
Can I
Professor?
get the question again, please?
Okay, so the
Yes,
first
I'm now
question,
on.
okay, the first question is, why is it that none of the committee responsible for stopping illegal mining aren't using this drone technology that the professor spoke about?
Well, we learned that what is happening in the Galamsey, not only the drone technology, but all the other areas that can stop is that there's political interference. People have put money ahead of human life. People do not care about being owners or stewards of the land that God has given to us to hold in trust for the next generation. If people care, they will go at every length to provide not only the drone technology, but to use all possible positive ways and actions to bring this menace to an end. Dr. Um, Moses told us that in Tanzania and in some other countries, Namibia also, they are doing it. Why can't it be done in Ghana? To me, it is compromise and deliberate and putting wealth ahead of our health and life. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. So I'll read out the second question and then see which speaker that question is addressed to. So my question um, is is it that illegal mining can stop in Africa, especially in Ghana? Or how and what effect will it benefit the youth into, I think is you are into it after stopping it. It's a bit not so clear to me, but if the speakers are able to grasp it, then maybe you could address it. If not, I read the third one, and I'm sure maybe the person want to see say um can illegal mining stop in Ghana?
Okay. Can I attempt to answer that question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Illegal mining can be stopped. There is technology to stop it.
Mm.
Small scale illegal mining has gone on, in my opinion, in 122 countries in the world have got issues with small scale mining. And in a number of countries, the issue has been stopped. The adverse impacts have been mitigated and stopped. What I think is required is a strong government initiative backed by all the stakeholders. If the stakeholders, from the religious leaders to the non-governmental agencies or civil society organizations, the chiefs, if everybody played their part, headed by the government, who has all the resources to play at its disposal to spearhead this action, it can be stopped and it might be stopped. In fact, maybe subsequently, what I can do is to put up, maybe for the for the attention of all interested parties, the case studies of where these issues have been stopped in a number of countries, and even in our own country, areas where people, the chiefs and the people, are doing much better in addressing this issue. In fact, it's not all dark in this country. There are few areas where efforts have been made to mitigate galamsey. But I think, as Prof said, is the greed and the quick desire for money which has made this effort difficult, and political interference. So if we choose to address all these issues from the technology aspect, from the social aspects, from our cultural dimensions, our religious dimensions, if we put all these things together, we should be able to solve that problem. And in fact, Ghana, we must solve it. Because as I said, if we don't solve these issues, and with the price of gold rising, we wouldn't have lands to farm. We cannot produce cocoa. We cannot farm our own local produce. It will be a national disaster. So we must do everything we can to solve it, and it is possible. Thank you.
I like the ending one, and it is possible. And that is a great start for us. So that question was asked by Saeed Zakaria. And before I move to the next two questions, before we get into our breakout room session, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Mr. John Akon. He is the UDS SRC president. Thank you. So I'd like to call Isabel Sego. Okay. Please, can you unmute yourself?
Okay. Yes. No, sorry. This is Charles.
Okay.
I just want to re-emphasize what has just been said about
Yeah.
Because in my presentation I said that I have seen what responsible mining looks like in Namibia and Tanzania.
Yeah.
The difference is leadership, enforcement, and respect for human life.
Mhm.
And we have the technology, and not using the technology and pretending to address or to be addressing the problem is a great sense of hypocrisy and undermines leadership. For instance, what drones can do very quickly and give you the results. If you take other means, you are just making it a little more inefficient, a little